Hey guys, welcome to Algebra 1. Today we're going to get started solving problems about a power of a product. Now use all you know about exponents and patterns because they're really going to help you get through this lesson. Ready to get started? Let's go. All right, now to help you with this, I need to set up a pattern for you. So bear with me for a second, but it's really going to help you understand how you solve these kind of problems. All right, so 4y raised to the third power, that product. What does that actually mean if we expand it out? Let's see. So I'm multiplying 4y by itself 3 times. So 4y times 4y times 4y, right? Now, the commutative property of multiplication, that tells me I can multiply things in any order that I feel like it, right? So I'm going to rearrange this multiplication. I'm going to bring all those coefficients out front, all those 4s, and I'm going to group all those y's together, okay? So I'm going to represent this as 4 times 4 times 4, and y times y times y, right? Okay. Now I'm going to simplify this. I see this part right here. I've got those 3 4s multiplied together. And then here I've got those 3 y's multiplied together. So I could represent that first chunk, that 4 times 4 times 4, as 4 to the third. And I could represent that second chunk, y times y times y, as y to the third. So that means that 4y raised to the third power, it means the same thing as 4 to the third times y to the third, right? Okay, keep that in mind and keep going with me. Do this a few more times. All right, so this one's a little different, but we're going to apply our same rule, or that same process that we just did. Okay, so 10b cubed raised to the second power. So that means I'm multiplying 10b cubed by itself, just one time. So I would have 10b cubed times 10b cubed, right? If I expanded that out, okay? I'm going to rearrange a few things, just like we did before. I'm going to bring my 10s out front, and then I'm going to put my b cubes to the back. So I'm going to rearrange this as 10 times 10 times b to the third times b to the third, right? Just rearrange the order of multiplication. Didn't really change the meaning of the problem, okay? Now I'm going to look at these in groups. I'm going to throw those parentheses back in there to help me simplify this. Now, if I'm multiplying 10 by itself one time, that's the same thing as 10 squared, right? Because you just raised 10 to the second power, multiplied by itself once. And then over here I have b to the third times b to the third, right? So isn't that just the same thing as squaring b to the third? Just multiplying it by itself one time? So I could represent it like this. I've got 10 times 10, which I'm representing as 10 squared. And I've got b cubed times b cubed, which I'm representing as b cubed squared. So what that means is that 10b to the third raised to the second power, that problem we started with, could be written just as this: 10 squared times b cubed to the third. Okay, stay with me, keep going. All right, 3x squared, that whole quantity, raised to the fourth power. All right, so let's think about what this means. You're multiplying 3x squared by itself 4 times. So you would have 3x squared times 3x squared times 3x squared times 3x squared. Okay. Now I'm going to do that same rearranging. I'm going to bring all those 3's out front and put all those variables at the back. All right. So I've got 4 3's I'm multiplying together. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I've pulled each of those 3's out front. And then I have x squared that I'm multiplying by itself. 4 times. So I'll bring all those together at the back. Okay, now I'm going to wrap parentheses around those different groups just to help me kind of zone in on them. All right, so I have 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. I could represent that as 3 to the 4th, right? Because you're multiplying 3 by itself 4 times. Now here you have x squared times x squared times x squared times x squared. So you're multiplying x squared by itself 4 times. So you could represent that part as x squared, that quantity, raised to the 4th power. So that means that 3x squared, that whole bit raised to the 4th power, is the same as 3 to the 4th times x squared to the 4th. Are you noticing anything yet? Let's keep going. All right, let's look at those 3 answers together and see if you notice the pattern. See if you notice what's going on. Okay, when we did 4y, that quantity cubed, we ended up simplifying it as 4 to the 3rd times y to the 3rd, right? And when we had 10b cubed raised to the 2nd power, we represented that as 10 squared times, well, let me write it just like we wrote it. Just, I want you to really look at them all kind of in the same way. Okay, so I'm going to write 10 squared times, so I've got to do it, b cubed squared. I was trying to avoid the parentheses, but I can't. Okay, and then we had 3x squared raised to the 4th power, right? So we had 3 to the 4th and x squared to the 4th. All right, now look at those all together. Even pause me for a bit. See if you notice the pattern. There's something going on with the exponents that we start with in our original problem and the exponents that we end up with in the solution. Okay, so pause me for a bit. See if you can figure out that pattern. All right, did you notice? Let's look at it together. All right, so in that first one, we had that 4y raised to the 3rd power. And then for our answer, we had 4 to the 3rd times y to the 3rd. It's almost like we distributed that exponent throughout that product inside. We broke it up, we raised 4 to the 3rd power, and then we raised that y to the 3rd power, right? And if you look at that second example, that 10b to the 3rd squared, it's like we took that 10 and raised it to the 2nd power, and then we took that b cubed and raised it to the 2nd power, right? So it's like we took both parts and raised them to the power of our exponent on the outside. Look at that last one, right? 3x squared raised to the 4th power. So we took that 3 and raised it to the 4th power for this part. And we took that x squared and raised it to the 4th power for this part, right? So it's like you're distributing your exponent throughout the terms inside your parentheses. That rule is known as the power of a product. So if you have a product that you have to raise to some power, just split the factors of your product up and raise them to that power initially. And that's a shortcut to solving these problems that involve a power of a product. All right, let's apply this rule and solve a few more. All right, let's get that pen back. Okay, so I have 5b cubed c, that quantity, and I'm raising it to the 2nd power. So instead of expanding it all out and finding the pattern, I'm just going to use the rule that we just figured out. All right, so I'm going to take each of these terms, each of those bits, separately, and I'm going to raise them to the 2nd power. All right, watch me work. So I'm going to take that 5 and raise it to the 2nd power. So 5 squared. Then I'm going to take this b cubed and raise it to the 2nd power. So b cubed squared. Then I'm going to take that c and raise it to the 2nd power. Okay? All right. So now let's simplify this. Now that you know the rule, we're going to go ahead and simplify 5 squared. Okay? We know that 5 times 5 is what this represents, right? So 5 squared. That's 5 times 5. So that's 25, right? So know that that first part just simplifies to 25. Now for this one, that b cubed raised to the second power, let's come off to the side. B cubed raised to the second power. We're going to use our rule about raising a power to a power. So you remember when you raise a power to a power, you just multiply your exponents together. So I know 3 times 2, that's 6. So that means that that simplifies as b to the 6, right? So I know that this second part right here, I can rewrite as b to the 6. And you see I'm dropping my dots. It's because I'm just getting ready to write the answer. You could keep writing those multiplication dots if you want, though. You're not wrong if you do. Okay? Then I see c raised to the second power. I'm going to come off to the side. So c raised to the second power. Oop. Did not write that like it was. Let's write it just like we started. Get that eraser back. Get that pen. Okay. So c raised to the second power. Okay, whenever you don't see an exponent, remember there's like a 1 there. It's an invisible 1. So same thing, power to a power. It's like you're multiplying your exponents together. That is what you're doing. So 1 times 2 is 2. So c raised to the second power is c squared. You probably already knew that anyway. Okay? Then you're all done. That would break right on down to 25 b to the 6 c to the second power. Okay? Let's try another one just to make sure you got a hang of it. All right, so for this one, we have 4x to the 6th y squared raised to the third power, right? So just use our rule. We're going to raise each of these parts to the third power, like we're distributing the exponent almost. All right, so I'd have 4 to the third power. So I'm going to raise everything to that exponent on the outside. And it's times x to the 6th raised to the third power, right? And then I'd have y squared raised to the third power. Okay? Now I'm just going to come off to the side and do a little work to simplify all this. All right. So 4 to the third power. I know that that's 4 times 4 times 4. So 4 times 4, that's 16. And 16 times 4 is 64. Now, if you don't want to do mental math like I'm doing right now, you don't have to. You could pull out a calculator and just do 4 to the third, and you still get that at 64. Okay? So we've got that first part. Now we have x to the 6th raised to the third power. We've got to handle this. So remember, we just use our rule about applying a power to a power. Just multiply your exponents together. So 6 times 3, that's 18. So that would be x to the 18th. And then I have, I'm right over here, running out of room, y squared raised to the third power. So our rule about raising a power to a power, just multiply your exponents together. So 2 times 3, that's 6. So this would be y to the 6th for that last bit. And you're all done. Just distribute that exponent throughout, and you're all done. All righty. Okay, one more together. So I have 2mn to the 5th raised to the 4th power. All right. So I'm going to just distribute that exponent. I'm thinking about it like that throughout. So I have 2 raised to the 4th power. So 2 to the 4th. Then I have m raised to the 4th power. So times m to the 4th. And I have n raised to the 5th power. Or I'm sorry, n to the 5th raised to the 4th power. N to the 5th raised to the 4th. All right, now let's simplify this. Okay, so I'm coming off to the side. 2 to the 4th. That's 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, right? So 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. Okay, so I've simplified that part to 16. M to the 4th, I kind of did a little shortcut there. I did a little different than I did that other one that had a 1 inside for the exponent. It's just going to save me a little work. It's just m to the 4th. Because I know there's a 1 there that I don't see. So it's not really like you're changing anything when you raise that to the 4th power. I'm sorry, let me just show you so you know what I mean, just in case you need. There's like a 1 there that I don't see. So when I multiply 1 times 4, it's just 4. So you're just raising it to that exponent on the outside. You're not actually multiplying it by a number that's going to change that exponent's value. Okay, so you can give yourself a little shortcut when you run into stuff like that. Okay, now for this one, I have n to the 5th raised to the 4th power. I'll come off to the side a little bit. So n to the 5th to the 4th, right? So raising a power to a power, just multiply your exponents together. So 5 times 4, that's 20. So n to the 20th for the last bit. And you're all done. You handled all 3 pieces of that. Okay? All right, let's keep going. It is now your turn. So pause me, take a few minutes, and work your way through these problems. When you're ready to compare answers with me, press play. All right, let's see how you did. 6g to the 4th, h to the 3rd, that quantity, raised to the 2nd power. You should have got 36g to the 8th, h to the 6th. 3d to the 11th, p to the 6th, that quantity cubed. You should have got 27d to the 33rd, p to the 18th. Okay? Now, if you need to see how I did any of those, let me show you how I got these. All right, so that first one, 6g to the 4th, h cubed, that quantity raised to the 2nd power. Make sure I got my pen. So I'm going to distribute that exponent throughout that product in my parentheses. So I'm going to raise 6 to the 2nd power. I'm going to raise g to the 4th to the 2nd power. Let's get that multiplication in there, just break things up. And I'm going to raise h cubed to the 2nd power. Right? Okay, so then I'm going to come off to the side. I need to get 6 squared. Okay, 6 squared, that's 6 times 6. So that's 36. Okay, so I'm going to replace 6 squared with 36. Then I have this piece, that g to the 4th raised to the 2nd power. So g to the 4th raised to the 2nd power. You're going to multiply your exponents together because you're applying your rule about raising a power to a power. Okay, so 4 times 2, that's 8. So you have g to the 8th. And then our last bit, that h cubed raised to the 2nd power. So same thing, apply your rule about raising a power to a power, multiply your exponents together. 3 times 2, that's 6. So h to the 6th for the last bit. Okay, that is how I got that first one. All right, if you need to see the second one, stay with me. Here we go. So I'm going to distribute that exponent throughout what's inside my parentheses, basically what I'm doing. All right, so I have 3 raised to the 3rd power times d to the 11th raised to the 3rd power times p to the 6th raised to the 3rd power. Okay? And then just simplify this. Just keep breaking this down. So 3 to the 3rd, come off to the side. All right, so that's 3 times 3 times 3. So 3 times 3, that's 9. 9 times 3 is 27. So I know 3 cubed would simplify to 27. Then I have d to the 11th raised to the 3rd power. Come off to the side. D to the 11th raised to the 3rd power. Follow your rule about raising a power to a power. Multiply your exponents together. So 11 times 3, that's 33. So that would be d to the 33rd power. Then we have our last piece, that p to the 6th raised to the 3rd power. Multiply your exponents together. So 6 times 3, that's 18. So this would be p to the 18th. And that's the last piece. All right, that is how I got that answer. All right. I hope you got a handle on the problems that we were working with today, and I hope you saw how just using your knowledge of exponents and patterns can take you a long way with the laws of exponents. All right, see you next time.